welcome to the Nonprofit Renaissance, where we help leaders of nonprofits go further and grow faster. We're your hosts. I'm Colin.
And I'm H.
And we are with some super, super exciting, special people.
Yes, they're going to get a behind-the-scenes look today at one of the really creative forces in our world today. And we're talking about Elevation Worship, Elevation Church, and the leadership there. And today with us, we've got two incredible people. They've been friends. I've known them for a few years. We've got Chris and Taylor Dobson, all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina. Say hello.
Hello. What's up?
Hello.
Glad to be here.
And they do so much, and they have done so much, but in all things video, film production for Elevation Worship, studio recording, managing people, projects, and figuring out what's next tomorrow, which there's so many insights and behind the scenes we're going to learn today. And I'm not sure if you're listening to the podcast, if you've ever heard of Elevation Worship.
They're startup.
Have you heard? It's a startup. Yeah,
they're going.
They dropped a single, I think, last week.
Trying
to find
incredible. Exactly. Incredible impact around the world, global in worship and music. And they're highly involved, leading at a high capacity, incredible team out there. But let's jump right in, guys, because we're excited to talk to you and help other nonprofits and churches explore, understand what you do, how you do it, and how it's going. So let's do it. Get right to it.
Yeah. What do you guys do? Take us a little behind the curtain. So your guys' day-to-day responsibilities, what's that look like?
Yeah. So just for context, we've been here in Charlotte for almost 5 years now, and moved for my job. I came on staff first, and so coming up on 5 years, it's been a wild journey. So much good and a little bit of frustration along the way, but mainly good. And then Taylor came on staff just a little over, a year ago, year and a half?
Yep. Yeah.
Somewhere in that range. And so, man, it's so much fun being able to be part of this team together. We don't report to each other. We are neither of each other's bosses.
That's good. That's good from what I hear.
Not even like we're part of the bigger team together, but like slightly different responsibilities. And so it keeps everything cordial. We're not bringing home frustration toward each other.
Neither of us can tell each other what to do.
Yeah,
which
it's great.
Or give each other work, which is very healthy.
It's honestly awesome.
Great.
So my role on staff now on the label, and I don't know if this helps at all, but just to know, in case anyone's wondering, like Elevation Worship is fully part of Elevation Church. They're not separate entities. Our leadership would say Elevation Worship is a ministry of Elevation Church. And so Sweet. We refer to ourselves as being on staff at the church, but our role is 100% within our record label. So I don't know if that context helps, but
no, that's helpful.
My role is that I'm the lead film director for Elevation Worship Records. And I say records because yes, there's Elevation Worship, but we have a few other artists on the label as well. So lead film director, and then I also lead our creative team.
And then I am the studio manager. So I kind of manage the studio on a week-to-week basis, like just the overall space. Not just the record label uses the studio, so other teams from the church can book time in there. So I keep our calendar, keep it clean, all that good stuff. And then I also project manage the audio team for the record label and making sure that all of our projects are getting done.
Mm-hmm. And it's a full-on music studio, right? Sound engineering, the full shebang.
Yep.
How big can I put like an orchestra in there, or just a big band, or
I kind of expect something out of the studio.
Yeah, so we have 3 studio spaces. We have a big room called Live A. We can fit a 50-person choir in there, 50, 60 people choir. It'd be tight, but they'd be in there singing. And we can get a full band in there for a workshop, so a whole crew. It probably would depend on the size of the orchestra. But
a very small
orchestra.
Okay.
And then we have two smaller rooms that kind of mirror each other, and those are Studio B and C. Couldn't quite fit a full band in there. We use those for like if we're tracking drums or a guitar, a couple vocals, BGV.
Or songwriting.
Sweet.
But they're all fully like soundproof and everything. You walk in and you hear it's like that dead sound. The room just feels really like it feels like a bunker.
Yeah,
it's incredible, and it's honestly the fruit of a lot of time spent like building the ministry over its what is it, like 16 or 17 years.
Yeah.
We used to have an off-site studio that we technically rented that space, but it was about 2 to 2.5 years ago now. We had the ability to kind of build this new studio on site and just make it, permanent location. And it's great that it's at our HQ. We can pop in, pop out, keep the day rolling. It's awesome.
I love it. Are you guys in charge of auditions or like?
No, so auditions run through the other.
Let's say, were you?
No, Colin. I'm sorry,
to-
because Colin came ready to audition. He wrote a song and he wanted to perform it today.
Well, it's an a cappella song.
It's not. So it's not you guys.
Well, you guys are recording this, so yeah, give us.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just make sure.
We'll just clip it and send it on.
Yeah, just if you have Pastor's email, just forward it to him. I'm sure.
Send it right on.
What's it called? Was it Rattle and Roll? Or
Yeah,
something?
it was based around the idea of like rattling. I don't know if that's already a song
We're
or not.
exploring
but,
that.
yeah.
That sounds like
Yeah.
something we're going into.
Theme.
It's a theme. Yeah, we've Chris, we've talked over the years actually since
Sure.
you started there, and I think we had maybe the honor of working a week together, maybe.
It was very short. I wish it could have been longer.
But the myths and urban legends of working at whether mega church, small church, you've done both. You both have done both, and are church kids and understand it. Help those listening understand a little bit of, okay, what's a day, a week, a month like in that department, in that team? Why even that department? Why do you need a record label? Why do you need a whole worship? Obviously, in answering to the cynics or the skeptics are like, yeah, it's all worship, and yes, it is. But the resource that Elevation Worship has been to churches around the world, it's incredible. And how it got there, it wasn't overnight,
Right.
And when maybe we think, oh, it's $1 million, not necessarily. Or sometimes when we think, oh, that was scrappy and homemade, not necessarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole side of that. Speak to that if you may, and help our listeners understand.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple questions there, but what stands out to me is like why have the record label, right? I would say okay, the mission of our church, right? So that people far from God would be raised to life in Christ. What's the mission of our record label? It's the exact same. So the people far from God will be raised to life in Christ. The way that we do that, looks really different than, this department or that one or this ministry, whatever. But ultimately, I would say that Elevation Worship, exists, one, because the people and leaders are there, right? Like ministry is built around who you have. And our pastor, Pastor Stephen, he had a vision for worship and a record label that would have an impact on people in Charlotte, in the States, around the world, whatever God saw fit for it. But he had a vision to resource the church, right? And so you said the word resource, that stuck out to me. And so I think that Elevation Worship, resources both churches and individuals with the Word of God through musical expression and through creativity. And I think that we've been, and I say we. So first off, I say we as in Elevation Worship, but we've only been here 5 years, and this has been going on for about 17. And so, we got the luxury of coming in at a very, very built ministry, and our role is to help push to greater heights and be on the journey, right? But we weren't there in those early days, and I know that there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into building what we have, right? So just a little context there. But I think that it's important that we resource the church with the gifts, with the talents, with what God saw fit for this ministry. And so on the creative side, right? So I fully work on the creative side, not on the music side whatsoever. That's more so Taylor and her team, and then of course the band. But creative has the ability to reach the heart before the mind. It has the ability to kind of give you a feeling before even understanding what that feeling is. And so the creative mission is, that we do our work so that people far from God will be raised to life in Christ. But we have the ability to kind of make that connection, whether it's through an emotion, through a visual experience, ultimately as a door and a gateway so that people can experience these songs and the message that we believe is true and right within these songs, that their heart would be opened to take that in, to receive it. They might be on YouTube watching who knows what, Mr. Beast, whatever, and somehow a recommended post or a recommended video for one of our songs might pop up. They might click it, and that's the door. You know what I mean? Even the thumbnail that we choose to use on YouTube, we put a lot of intention into, so that if someone's scrolling, something about that thumbnail will hopefully just reach out and kind of grab them, you know? And so we see a lot of intention in all of it. So I know that's kind of rambling a little bit.
No, I love it. No, yeah. Let me ask Taylor this, and then Colin jump in. Walk us through. I know the studios, some of them are new, some of them weren't there, some of them were, you know, you guys didn't start right off the bat with full developed studios and large teams. And that's also helpful to remember. Walk us through the process, Taylor. How does it work? Like, writing a song, is this on a napkin and then you send it to Chris? Chris makes a video in his room. Walk us through the whole shebang from conception to, you know, distribution all over the world.
Well, I think one thing to kind of clear up is we're the seasons are constantly changing. So I would say we've kind of come out of a really heavy writing season. And, you know, there were weeks where they were in the studio a few days a week writing. Demos were being recorded left and right. And we're kind of in a season right now where that's not happening as much. But I think that, you know, it just that we're not always working on something. We have ebbs and flows with
like
it.
a major project.
Yeah, like a major project. So when they're in writing, you know, it's very much they're booking a room, they're in all day. We have a lot of guests that we write with, and they don't always know what they're writing for. It might not be us. It might be for this other artist or this guest. We have a lot of really great songs that are just hanging out that might never make it anywhere, which is crazy to think about. Like that, there's a lot of songs that it might be amazing.
Can you drop one? Can share an exclusive here with us? Oh.
We'll no longer have a job after that.
No, it'd be worth it though. We can.
It's just crazy to think about that are, you know, but I think it kind of frees them up to really write a lot of different things.
Yeah, Taylor, and it sounds like there's a creative community collab, like a fostering of that, nurturing songwriting, right?
Yeah, so it's not just, you know, the three same people writing over and over again, which I think is really cool. Pastor Stephen is very involved in the writing, and I think what's so cool is he's extremely gifted in that. And so him, Chris Brown, Tiffany, like they're some of our in-house writers and our anchors, and then we build a lot around that. When they're in writing sessions, they kind of work between that and demo workshops. And so once the song's written, if they want to kind of see where it goes, they'll bring the band in, they'll workshop it. It's fun to see a song come to life. It's fun to hear that first demo from the writing go into like a full band and hear everything. But from there, we usually, like a lot of our latest albums have been built around a live recording. And so even then, going from those in-studio workshops to hearing a song on stage, we were talking about it a little bit this morning. Some of the songs from Can You Imagine, that album, were written the day before the live recording, or like finished up an hour or two before the live recording. Been So Good is one that didn't have a place on Friday morning. And then by Friday afternoon, they're like, it's going in the set tonight. Wow. So just thinking about those songs going, wow, that's like I love that song. And knowing that it was so close to not even...
It almost didn't exist.
It almost didn't even exist. But because they leaned in, because they believed in it, because they pressed in and allowed the Holy Spirit to give them the words, the melodies, what they needed to do. It's really cool. And even for a song like that, you know, going into a night of worship, not having it fully figured out, after we do a live recording, there's a lot that happens after with like overdubs and tracking. And so our team will, you know, sit with the producers and go, okay, what are we cutting? What are we keeping? What are we scrapping completely? And so it's really cool to just see the minds working, but also just how much they are leaning into the Holy Spirit to say, what do we need to do with this? So that's kind of an album. That's a very quick album.
No, I love it. I love Colin.
I have a little micro story just to share on like that post process. And I don't know if it fits or not, but it's funny to me because it affected our team. But so like they'll, you know, a song will be written, we'll record it, and then somehow some songs remain in writing mode even after they're recorded. And we truly do record them live. It's not just a front. Yes, there's work on the back end. Of course, we're cleaning up some musical parts, or if an ad lib is there that didn't really have the effect they wanted, they might take it out or modify it, whatever. Of course, that stuff happens. But the song Same God, which has been amazing to see its reach over the couple years. But the third verse did not exist when we recorded it live. Just didn't exist, right? We had 15 or 16 cameras, however many, capturing that whole moment, of course. We edited the song, and then I got a text saying, hey, this is kind of crazy, but we wrote another verse for the song.
And then can you add that in the video?
And it's like, it's gonna have to be in the video. And I'm like, but the video's already been recorded.
There is no video for it.
So
Wow.
if you go on YouTube or Apple Music or whatever, if you go to the third verse, which is I'm calling on the God of Mary, you won't see the worship leader sing the word Mary, because I had to figure out and fragment these little parts and moments to make it look like it was live.
Wow.
But it's like, it's we have to stay flexible. Like, the song is the most important thing in the end of the day. And if there's a conviction from whether it's Chris Brown, our leader, or Pastor Stephen, or whoever, that it's like, hey, like this modification needs to happen. This verse needs to exist. Hey, instead of this word, we're going to re-record it with this word. It's like, hey, we make that work. And
I love it.
There's grace for it. But there's some other funny stories like that. But that's probably that's
a good one. It's great.
And I'm sure that's the culture. We've talked before, and other staff members there too. The culture of right, leading with a yes, it's possible, not letting the medium or the tool limit what God's doing.
Sure.
Or, right, because you could say, well, we recorded, it's rendering.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just and not limiting, and then seeing would the song do the same without it, and just being obedient to what God has. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, on that point, I think there's probably a lot of people that would stop at the sorry, but I think you've got orgs like Elevation that show like when you take that step and say, no, we're going to figure it out. So can we get a little bit? Feel free to be a little detailed here, Chris.
Sure.
Let's take like a worship night. When you do like a live video, what does that take from a video and music? Like what does that take to put together? Like, just give a little bit of an appreciation, but then also like if people are like, well, how do we do that?
Yeah.
Well, and picture the church down the street who's like, we can just do that, and we'll just record in the back, and then I want it, out by Monday.
Sure. Well, I would say that, okay, so in our context, we are generally, not always, but for the most part, at least for our major albums, we're recording in our primary broadcast space, right? Mm-hmm. So it takes more work to do a multicam recording in a different space, right? Because there's no infrastructure. And we've done that, and we've had a great time with it. Love the results. But I'll just speak in the context of like using your own building, basically, right? And so I think the least important part is like camera choice. Like, we could use a lot of different gear. We could use a lot of different.
I hear iPhone 15 is pretty good.
iPhone 15 is the way to go.
I mean, let me tell you, it really is. I picked one up, and I'm
Let's go.
so impressed with what I'm getting out of it. Anyway, so on the video side of things, well, let me back up. So our team, we don't just handle the recording, like we handle the creative direction of the entire night. Like, what does the room look like? What does it feel like? What are people going to experience? Are people that are on the floor, are they going to be in the dark? Or are they going to be lit up? Is it going to be moody? Like, what emotion do we want to kind of advocate for, right? Song to song, that has a little bit, there's obviously some variance there. But as like a foundation, we spend a lot of time talking about, well, as much time as we can, talking about like, what is it going to feel like in there? Mm-hmm. And if you watch albums before Graves in the Garden, so Graves in the Gardens was 2020. So like before that was Hallelujah Here Below. Before that was There's a Cloud, and some other ones. And of course, those are amazing albums, amazing recordings, all of that. But you'll see a shift if you like compare those to Graves in the Gardens. And the shift was, hey, let's make the whole room bright. Let's not lean into this separation of stage and audience, but like let's visually take the approach that the whole night depends on both. Mm-hmm. Like it depends on what's happening on the stage, but also on the reaction and the reception of the audience, right? And so we said, hey, let's make it feel like one. There has to be a stage, sure, because like stuff has to get recorded and there's technology and whatever. But like, let's blend those two worlds and not have a divide. Mm-hmm. And so Graves in the Gardens was very bright. And we've kind of carried that into some other projects. And so that's when I said the look and feel of it, like the worship leaders, they want to see the connection on the people's faces. If you look at, a lot of older recordings, it's like if you see a big room shot, it's like all the people are like almost pitch black and the stage is super bright. Mm-hmm. And so we start there. What do we want it to feel like? What do we want the lights to do? Do we want it to have color and chroma and elicit these different moods, or do we want it to be a little bit more raw, a little bit more punk rock, and just kind of have just like bright lights blaring everywhere, And so from there, we say, okay, now how do we capture this emotion that we're chasing, right? And for us, for Elevation specifically, using that same God example, like there's a lot of flexibility that has to happen in post-production. And for that reason, we use a lot of cameras, as many as I can possibly squeeze into the budget. And then from there, maybe a little more, just depending on how much,
Why is that, Chris? Is it
and or gravel?
Safety net, opportunity? Is it just seizing the moment? Give me if you're trying to convince me why.
It's like, what I don't want to happen is that we're in post-production and Chris Brown, who's very involved in everything we're doing and reviewing and has his eyes on what we're building, he might say, hey, in this section, I think we benefit from seeing a lot more crowd. What I don't want to do is say we don't have more crowd. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to say, yeah, we can dig into that. Like, hey, do we have a shot of like this bass lick that happens in the second verse? No, because that camera was on drums, Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, we do miss stuff, of course, like little nuances like that. But I'm trying to minimize that as much as possible, right? So we use a lot of cameras, and with that, it dictates what we can use. Do I want to be using Alexa Mini LFs across the board and like, our top option out there? Yeah, of course I do, but that's not going to be realistic. And so we work with what we have access to. I think lens choice is probably more important in the end than even the cameras themselves. Just the character of the lens, and if there's going to be a lot of blur, if there's going to be a lot of bokeh, if it's going to be more like, hey, everything's in focus because this scene is really crazy and we want to see all the details. And so,
what's the average number, Chris? What's the average number of cameras for a live recording in your main auditorium?
16.
16?
Yeah. So
I thought 60 for a second. I'm like,
no, I'm sorry. 16.
You just give them out to audience members. They're all
everybody.
Fly your phones, fly your pros.
If you're familiar with the song, it's called "Might Get Loud." Mm-hmm. We did have like 25 or 26, but a lot of those were like handy cams. So we had like our more premium look, but then a lot of handy cam stuff. What I'm getting at is like the way I interpret it is like, what are the songs speaking to us, and like how can we best translate what we feel through the song to video? And I think maybe the bigger concept there that has kind of been something that's stuck with me throughout our time in ministry as a whole is like, I want to be really familiar with where I'm trying to take people, meaning like if we want people to experience the presence of God, do I know what that feels like? Do I know where I'm trying to take and lead people? And have I let these songs speak to me? Have I just sat with the songs and been a listener and been in the audience myself, to where, okay, this has had an effect on me, and the trust of what I experienced through there, I want to carry that in a weighty sense in trying to bring that to the audience at large, right? The hopefully millions of people that see the video. And so I think the emotion and the empathy that takes is important for any creative that's trying to translate a moment in their church to a greater and bigger audience. And so the camera choice is not that important. I think using the light to shape the room and kind of create a mood and fit the song is very important. Collaboration is everything. Like I can't go behind a lighting board and be like, let me just do it. Let me just show you what I need. Like I need to use my creative direction to translate that language to a lighting designer into a lighting professional and use that collaboration to make the product better, and then just translate that across the board. If I'm in the director's seat, I need to trust my DP. I need to trust my camera assistants. I need to trust my camera operators. Yeah, I mean, that's some of the stuff that comes to mind.
Yeah, let me ask you a question on collaboration there. Tell me the involvement or the overlap with art direction. When does album cover / does it fit the set? Does it fit the style of the videos you're creating, live or post lyric videos? Talk a little bit about that collaboration.
Yeah, so very, very interesting question. We've gone back and forth on this a lot. Graves in the Gardens was the last project we did where we knew that we were recording an album that night. And we knew that it would be called Graves in the Gardens. So that was 2020. Since then, we have held worship nights, and it's very loose. There is not like a theme necessarily. We think, we often think we know like what songs based on how they've been going in Sunday morning and the response from a Sunday morning.
Which, by the way, that's where you can get your leaks. Sunday morning.
Sure.
That is where you.
Just a trick. Elevation Live.
That's what the leaks are. We often, we make an attempt to know what songs we think are going to maybe drive a project, but we so the album Lion that we put out, which has the visual of the lamb, that was over 2 live recordings, and we didn't know that it would be 2 live recordings. We did one, and we just didn't feel like we had a complete project. Some more songs were in the queue. Some more songs got written that week, and it was like, let's do another one. And then it's like, now we have a project. And so
whereas Can You Imagine, we knew within 2 days after that was going to be an album. We all got
not before it.
But not before it.
The thing.
So we recorded it, and then 2 days later, it was like, hey, we've got an album. So everyone kicks into gear.
So art direction is very heavily driven on the post-production side. There's a little bit of debrief that happens after a recording to just like, how are we feeling? What did we feel that night? This song that we thought would absolutely take off didn't quite meet what we were hoping. And this other song was a huge surprise. What does that mean? And so then we'll start chasing some themes. We might have a couple different titles in mind built around some different songs, whether it's the title of a song or Can You Imagine is a good example, because that's just one line within a song called More Than Able. And so we have an amazing art director. His name's Jacob Boyles, who chases a lot of that down and, pulls on resources of different designers within the church, maybe some contract people. And then he himself is making tons of options. We present probably 50 ideas and options to, typically it would be Chris Brown, to just say like, what stands out here? Like, what are you drawn to? Like what emotion do you experience in any of these?
Okay,
None
so
of them
50,
cool. Let's start over.
50 styles. So 50 covers, 50
Yeah. I mean, maybe
textures.
there might be like 20 like unique variation or unique ideas, but then variations within. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then it gets narrowed down, gets funneled down. And then if we use Can You Imagine as an example, we got word of, hey, like let's see some images of the burning bush. Like, what does that look like to interpret that in 2023, right? And
they burned a lot of bushes.
And I feel
were so
the arborists are going to come after us. But we burned a lot of bushes to get some pictures.
They just were all over the back of the church. Like, you just walk by and there'd be these charred bushes in a pile.
It's like 1 p.m. on a Wednesday. We're like, let's burn this bush now. Let's take some pictures. Let's do it with a slow shutter. Let's do it with this background. Let's,
But even that album,
it's a journey.
That name wasn't finalized till I think we were getting ready to turn it in. We did an album listening party, and I think Chris pulled the room. Hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And so even the name, they still weren't sure on.
Yeah.
Wow. There's no perfect process. I hope that's what that all speaks.
Yeah, no, that's encouraging.
Yeah, well, I mean that's interesting. I wonder if people you probably wouldn't assume that about like elevation worship. That I think maybe the assumption would be like everything is set and ready before they go in. You know this and this and this and this and this and this. I also imagine it could be somewhat freeing for churches or even nonprofit organizations who are going to put on some type of event to know like we don't have to have all of that figured out. And Taylor, maybe on your side, because it sounds like you've probably got a hand in a lot of the background of things and kind of making sure all this stuff is set. Speak to that. Encourage leaders who are like, I got to have everything. Maybe no, you don't. Talk about it.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you have to have a very secure relationship with God. And that's probably sounds very cliche, but I know that I could not do what I do without my own relationship with God. I can't rely on my leaders to do that for me. Just because I work at a church doesn't mean that I have that. I have to be pursuing that on my own. I know like Chris has, we each have to pursue that on our own, completely separate from what we do for our jobs, for our family, everything. So I think that's the first step is if you don't have that, your own convictions, your own, foundation that you come back to, you're going to waver, right? Like you're going to wonder, you're going to doubt. And I think if you have a place to take that, which is that relationship, that really helps. I think too, having the trust of your leaders is really important. And I think that both Chris and I trust our supervisors. We trust our team, and we trust the people that are leading, specifically our label and our church, to say, like, we trust them. So when they're making decisions on the fly, it can be a little stressful at times, but we always come back to that place of, I trust what God's saying to me personally. I trust what God is saying to our leaders. And so because of that, we can trust the process, which is not perfect. It's not always the same. There's been weeks where I've come home and been like, hey, my week just blew up. I need you to, we got to figure out the kids' schedules. We're re-navigating all of the stuff. There's weeks where he's like, hey, I just got this email. We have a shoot in 2 days.
Yeah. So at 5:15 p.m.
Right. So I think we've gotten more flexible, but I think in order to get more flexible, you have to get more grounded in that relationship with God. And just saying, do I really trust the people that are leading me? Because if you do that, then no matter what decisions are happening around you, what isn't decided till the final hour, you can always come back to that place.
I think to that note, it's like there can be a lot of energy spent doubting, and the trust in the leadership negates that potential lost energy. And so it's like building that relationship is so important in our eyes. And one of my supervisors early on in my time at Elevation, the great Reverend Bishop Ryan Hollingsworth, who is the church's creative pastor, we had kind of a staff and structural shift that happened within like maybe 6 months of me being at the church. And he became my supervisor. And what I learned from him, the number one thing I learned from him is that he starts with trust. He didn't know me that well. He didn't really at the time, because we hadn't had tons of interaction, like known my potential or lid or anything, like what my skill sets were. But he started with trust, and it was, it was mine to lose basically. And so it's like, rather than being like, hey, you're going to have to prove that you're in this, prove that I can trust you. He's like, hey, my choice is to trust you, and what you do with it from there is kind of up to you.
Right.
And I think that set the tone for some really formidable and amazing years working together. And we're in separate departments now, and like, he's a great friend of mine, but he taught me a lot through that.
And I would say you carry that on your team too. Like Chris starts with trust with his team too. And I think that's from Ryan kind of imparting that to him, like, hey, this is a great way to lead because you're kind of putting it on the other people. Hey, it's yours to lose. And I think a lot of our team have risen to that, standard.
Yeah. You say that's an elevator for people, not putting them down.
The right people, right? Yeah, like the right people will see it as like I can do that, not as a down.
Guys,
so when the decision is made to, hey, we've been working on this, but we got to change and pivot and go this other direction, or like, hey, someone came up and like we were supposed to have this Friday off, but in order to get this done, we got to put in some time. It's like that trust is already built so that there's not energy lost on like doubting or being frustrated, but saying like, hey, if that's what it takes, we'll figure out the time on the back end, and maybe it's coming in a couple hours later on Monday, or taking a long lunch. I don't know, whatever it is. It's like that trust is there, and I feel like that has really carried us through some tough days and some tough weeks, and it's crucial, at least for our culture.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of questions. You mentioned the collaboration between both of you earlier, that there's no direct reporting or line there. I was curious about that. Since you're in the same department, per se, in the same wing, in the same creative, it's not like you're in another campus, doing whatever,
Right.
campus pastoring or kids ministry.
Sure.
But Taylor, you're also creative. You're a photographer, you're a worship leader, you're a musician, and I'm sure you see every frame that Chris films and edits and colors, corrects. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about that opinion collaboration. Anytime you guys fully disagree, like, no, you should go this way. I like it this way. Curious.
Well, I'll share one of my favorite stories. So before I came on staff, I worked from home for a couple companies corporately. And so, I was involved from a staff spouse perspective, and I would come to like a live recording, or I would, I would see the videos, right, as they were, being released and everything. But my involvement was very different. But one of my favorite stories is right around COVID, when COVID was happening, The Blessing, they recorded it at church and said, we want to release it. We're just going to take the church recording and we're going to, clean that up, and we're going to release that. And so the video project came home that next week with Chris, along with all three of our children, because school was canceled or home. And it was so cool because I remember it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday. We're all home, and I'm like, I feel like my space has been invaded because I was used to working in a quiet house with everybody gone for the day. And I just remember hearing him working on the Blessing video. And I remember hearing the song just playing over and over and over and over again because he was editing. But it was so cool because when he finally uploaded it to YouTube to go live for the world, it was from the room we're sitting in right now. And
it was your fourth child, basically.
Yeah, fourth child, the world. And there's so many people that go into that. Like, aside from what Chris was doing in the video, there's the audio team, there's the actual Sunday morning team, there's the band, there's so many people involved in that process. So that is not like it's not a single thing. But when I think about that impact of like, he uploaded the video from our house and it just got to kind of like wash over our house all week.
That's cool.
I always go back to that story when I think about like, we won't ever take this for granted, what we get to be a part of. It's very special. I'm convinced we have two of the most fun jobs ever. And I will always be grateful for that. And so, whenever he's like, hey, can you come check this out? There are times where I'll say, hey, this one shot, or he doesn't always take them, and that's totally fine. I'm always like, this is just a suggestion. I think what him and his team create is amazing. One of my favorite videos is the Hark video they just did. I think it is so cool. They've done some really cool stuff. And I think what's amazing is, like, again, it's not perfect. There's a lot of things they have to decide on the fly, in the middle of a shoot, in between takes. There's a lot of things that he will plan for a live recording that the day of, they're cutting from the room, or like he's thinking of some painful decisions. But it's just on they have to make the call. And so, as much as I will watch a video and go, that one shot, I know that there's so much that has gone before that to get to the point where the edit is almost done. And so there's a lot of hard fought work that goes into, a video or an audio project, I would say.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. 'Cause, a lot of the stuff, especially the video content that I see coming out, is pretty innovative or pretty different from what a lot of churches are doing, even bigger churches. What's that process like? And even what's the vision and reasoning behind that? When, if you've got a church that said, well, no, we can focus on doing it this way and keeping it sort of, I don't know, vanilla or whatever, but like what's the reasoning and what's the process of like figuring out how you kind of break those boundaries?
Sure. I wish there was an easy answer. I wish it was a formula, but it's certainly not. I mean, when the decision is made, whether it's our decision or some of our leaders to say like, let's chase down a music video idea for this, our very first thing is like hounding Taylor for like, can we get the demo? Do you have a rough mix? Like,
I need to hear something.
Yeah.
I give them away very freely to our team. I don't hold them or anything.
Cassettes, either cassettes or records, like vinyls,
I
press them.
burn it for them. I burn it for them onto a CD.
And, you know, so it kind of goes back to that idea of like, how does this song make me feel? Like, what is this song telling me? And then whether it's a loose connection or a very on the nose connection, like how are we going to display this visually? And it starts with like no surprise, like a brainstorm and a pitch process. We'll kind of get together, like what are we feeling? What's been sticking out to us? What have we seen lately, whether it's from a church or whether it's from Travis Scott? Like it's like what is like speaking to us, what's standing out? And we'll see if there's connection between the team as someone shows an idea. What is I'm listening for that emotional response, whether it's like, oh man, like that's awesome, or whether it's like, okay, like I can kind of see it. Let's dive in a little deeper. Like, what is that emotional response? And a lot of ideas we chase down are usually ones that start with a, oh, whoa, wow, that's kind of wild. And I think that emotional response, if it is having an effect on us, like how maybe there's something there. Maybe there's something that we can translate to how we want to interpret this idea, you know. And just a quick caveat to that note, I think for creatives, I would say both for like leaders that are leading creative teams and the creatives themselves, like always be intaking like ideas, always be processing, like whether it's YouTube or Instagram or another social media, it's like if something stands out to you, save it. Like build yourself a log, a mood board, a Pinterest board, or whatever else on like stuff that you can go back to later. You always think you can remember that like, hey, if I need an idea in 2 weeks, I'll remember this video. But no, life happens in those 2 weeks and you're going to forget. If you're anything like me, you'll forget. And I do all the time. So I save stuff.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. And so I think that like always be watching, always be feeling is like really important. And then we pitch those ideas. We kind of whittle them down. You know, we try to not live purely in the hypothetical. We try to not pitch an idea unless we can understand its execution. And with its execution, we have to understand the budget. And so we don't want to get caught in the trap of like, look at this crazy idea, Mr. Leader Guy. And then it's like, what's it going to take to pull it off? Well, it's going to take $1 million. Okay, next idea.
Next.
We want to be able to say like, we have our head around this. And that's been a process. We've pitched ideas that we were incapable of before and had to learn some hard lessons with that. And so based on the resource of your ministry and based on the experience and the team of your ministry, like keep that in mind, embrace the limitation. I think that's really important for what we do. And of course we have limitations, whether it's purely a budgetary thing or whether it's maybe a location thing. Hey, we don't want to travel anywhere for this. We want to kind of keep it a quick thing and stay in town. Okay, well that definitely limits our options for locations. You know, just as an example, like embrace that limitation. I think that's like the key there. We pitch the idea, we assign roles, and we chase it down. Maybe some of those roles are coming from in-house people. Maybe like we lean on our AVL team a lot for the church, and I go to the guy who leads all of that, and I say, I'm back again. Like, who do you have that could be available to help us rig? Because we don't know how to put this thing in the air, but like, we want to lean on your expertise to do it and to make it safe, and to like make something cool together, right? And so like, we have the idea, you have the experience. Let's put those together. And then I would say probably the most important thing is just like a worship leader has to fully prepare for a worship set. At the end of the day, that's like 50% of the equation. Full preparation becomes 50% because the other 50% is the direction of the Holy Spirit in the moment, right? Probably some of the best worship moments that you've been involved in definitely that I've been involved in have come from some kind of spontaneity, something that was not planned or projected, but that happened, right? It took preparation to get to that point, but then it's the Holy Spirit leading and guiding from there to really cause that impact. And so if you take that idea and that analogy into like what we're doing creatively, we are fully prepared. And then at the same time, we are fully prepared to change the day of if we have to. Mm-hmm. So Taylor mentioned this music video for a song called a Christmas song called Hark that we made a music video to. And we knew what we wanted to do camera wise. Then we get to it the day of. And then I asked the question, like, would this look better on a skateboard? And it was like, well, I don't know. Let's try and find a skateboard that has really smooth wheels. And almost starting off as a joke, it's like I just started riding around with this camera, and it was like, actually, like that's like fast and it's beautiful and it creates a lot of energy that matches the song. And so like we shot this music video recently, and probably more than half the shots are from a skateboard.
So all those years paid off.
Yes.
Yeah. I wish we could have had
Nothing is wasted. God uses everything. Amen.
I love that.
I wish we could have had the budget for a 30-foot round dolly track.
Yeah.
But that's not what we had in this one. We had a gimbal and a red Komodo and a skateboard, and like that's what we had. And it was a great time. But it's like it was the decision the day of to say like, hey, is this better? Is it just different? Is it better? Does this elevate? We had 2 cameras, but do we even need to use them both? We had this person running the camera, but like maybe because of this person's height or ability to change angles and pull focus at the same time, maybe they'd be better. We keep all of that really with an open hand, even though we are fully prepared. So I hope that it makes sense.
Question. Now it's a question, and then first a pitch. I'm sure, knowing Pastor Stephen, this has come up already, but if it didn't, you heard it here first. At the Nonprofit Renaissance. Elevation Nights in the Sphere, Vegas.
Oh.
Would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Okay, cool. Rock and roll. I just need a seat in the back. I'll take a seat in the back just to worship along.
I'll send you the petition to get enough signatures for it. Maybe some crowdfunding.
Done. Right? That would rock.
Honestly, everything in the Sphere has been so cool.
Yeah. So something really innovative.
Right.
A zip line with no, maybe not. Maybe
Yeah.
not.
Maybe
we
You're welcome.
scratch that.
Question. Let's talk to the leader at a church, at an organization, looking to figure out what would be a ministry or another lane or avenue to get their message, their mission out, to get their brand out, and they look at you guys and they say, "Man, we're gonna do it just like Elevation. We're gonna do Elevation worship at our." And we would never recommend that. There's one Elevation. God's given you guys a clear mission and vision, and let's not try to copy that. Now it's inspiring. And it kind of motivates, and it's contagious, and the spirit of it. And I think there's a lot to learn, like we are learning. But speak to that leader. What does it take? What would be your advice? What are some things that you've learned in your years there, seeing it up close, seeing it from afar, and being kind of like inspired by it, and now being, the source of inspiration and connected to God and the leadership there? What would you say to the leader?
Yeah, what comes to mind, and I kind of hold these like kind of pillars or like major buckets of ideas in my head of like what I've experienced, at least just since being here. And I have like probably 5 or 6 like major pillars that I base a lot of decisions on. And one of them, I feel like applies to this. And it's the idea of revelation over inspiration. That inspiration is vitally important for everything we do creatively, for anyone leading an organization, like a major company like Uber was drawing a lot of inspiration from what Apple did, like when they were building their company, and like et cetera, et cetera. Inspiration is very important, but in what we do in the context of ministry, revelation has to be more important. And it's staying in that constant place of course, seeking the Lord and letting the word of God be living and be active, and in saying like, I want to go this direction because it draws me and it stands out to me, but like, God, is that what you have, or is there something else? Like, speak to me. And so I would say like both are important, but the order of them is crucial for impact. And so, for the leader that's looking to express their ministry and wrap some creativity around it and increase its impact, it's like, seek revelation first. But then I'd say practically, it's like you already have arguably the best possible resource through social media, right? And you've heard this before, I'm sure, but it's like, social media, it doesn't have to promote your ministry. It can be your ministry. Like, what are you communicating? Like, how do you get the heart of what you're doing expressed, like, to anyone that happens to come across it? Like, you already have that resource. And so, in my mind, a lot of our stuff we do is through technology and through whatever. And so, like, I'm drawn to that. I use social media all the time, sometimes to an unhealthy extent, but like at the same time, like I'm saving stuff into buckets, like whether it's a visual, whether it's a message from someone, whether it's even just an interview scene or like a screenshot from a movie with really cool lighting. Like, I'm saving that because I want to be able to refer back to it later as inspiration. But I can't let myself start there. I want, kind of going back to what we were saying a little while ago, where it's like, in the context of like how we express a song creatively, it's like, what is it actually making me feel? Like, what does it mean to me? We did this song called "Been So Good." It's like, what a friend you have been. And it's like, that's so comforting. And we want, how we express this song to have that comfort. So we might use a lot of warm tones. We might use a lot of like longer shots in the way that we do the certain video. Let's sit down and just kind of be comfortable. Right. And so, scale that down as much as you need to, like, embrace the limitation of who you have as a ministry, but also don't be afraid to dream, like, of course, dream, of course, believe big, but be willing to start small. And that's totally good, because that just simply means that you are using the resource that you have to its full effect. Mm-hmm. And so I know that all of that is kind of like ethereal, maybe at a top level. If you see a way to maybe break that down practically that we could dive into, like, let me know.
No, love that. And we're gonna encourage, if you're a leader, bring your creative into this, bring that person that you're thinking about when you just heard that, and share this episode, let them listen. I want to be inspired, but to even understand. I love the inspiration versus revelation. So key, right? And what's unique. The revelation is going to be unique to what God has, what the purpose is for your mission directly, not just
unique is a good word for sure.
Yeah. A question. No, just going back to a little insight. Taylor shared the blessing earlier and what that meant to you guys personally in a season that you'll never forget. That's such a cool, unique opportunity. Favorite song? Can you pin one down? What's your favorite Elevation worship song?
I mean, right now for me, it's that song "Been So Good."
Yeah.
Which maybe the listener is familiar with it, maybe not. Go listen to it. It's on Can You Imagine?
Boom. Is it always the latest for you, or no? There's an element to that. It's like the last thing you worked on.
Oh man, no. Like there's a song called "Worthy" that is, I think, from maybe like 2018 or 19 that will like forever be such a meaningful and beautiful song for me in my own worship. Like, we both play music. We have a piano here. And so, like, just to sit down sometimes, like, that's just the song I go to, and it is huge. But no, "Been So Good" is like beautiful because of purely just simply what it is. But Taylor mentioned it earlier, when the day that we recorded it, 24 hours before, it didn't exist. And there was another song in its place that honestly just kind of, it was like the one song, at least we felt, was like, we'll see how this one goes. It got replaced just because someone sat down at the piano and they had written like maybe the chorus or like a part of it and just kind of played the hook and was like, hey, maybe there's something here. Then for the next hour, just around this Nord at probably like 11 p.m., Pastor Stephen, Tiffany, Chris, and another guy just hashed through and wrote the rest of this song. And it was like, hey, we really think this might be something for tomorrow. Like, let's put it in and see how it goes. And it's
I love it. A
huge song for me personally.
Taylor, is it blessing besides the blessing? What is it?
Well, blessing is not my favorite one. I know. I think it's a great song. I know you can edit that out. My favorite one is "There's a King." I love that one. It's just, I like the simplicity of it. I think it's a beautiful song. So that is my favorite.
Colin, you got a favorite one?
Awesome. Well, we mentioned rattle earlier. That's my favorite to play on drums. I'm a drummer, and so I like.
Cool.
That's a fun song to play. You guys have a lot of fun songs to play on drums. But I meant like the first. I think my intro to Elevation worship was "Only King Forever."
Wow, cool.
So that always sticks out for me. That's just where it
Yeah.
started it all.
And I'm a
What about
dancer,
you?
so I'm more like Elevation
so
Youth,
what-
like
what-
Echo,
what
Echo,
exactly-
Echo Youth, and all the Spanish stuff.
Walk on water. Is that your favorite one?
Yes, because that's it's one
'Cause there's
foot at
a
a
dance.
time.
There is
What is-
actually
There is
a
a dance
dance
that goes with
to,
it.
to that one.
I know this is the secrets. Like Chris consults with me on the Spanish stuff. He calls me up and I translate stuff.
Wow.
Incorrectly most of the
I
time. I'm
think
kidding.
we got something coming next year, which obviously you know about because we've talked. There's going to be some great resources coming next year on the
Spanish side.
yeah
En español.
yeah.
Ah,
Para nuestros escuchadores y
We have a
elevación is what they
Okay, we need to totally change how we say that, and we need to.
oh yeah, we'll just pull that clip and be
Oh
like,
no! Oh no!
even in just kind of talking through those songs, like this quick story came to mind, and maybe it's useful, maybe it's not, but like it forever puts into like mindset for me, like what we are uniquely a part of, and it means a lot to us. But like for any ministry, like what you experience on a day to day is unique to you, and it should really mean something. But this story really sticks out where it was 2019, and we were traveling, and our lead engineer was with us, and he had said like, "Hey, the guys, they wrote this cool song yesterday. I'm just going to play it in the car on the way to the airport. Like, what do you guys think of it?" And he put it on, and it was the demo for Graves in the Gardens. And it was like, "Oh, interesting. That has a different feel. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, cool." Like 6/8, it's a totally different like kind of vibe
Sounded
from
kinda
what
country.
we were writing at the moment.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, okay, that's cool. To go from that and then fast forward to that song got workshop, that song got put into church. We wrote the rest of a project around it. We live recorded it. And then a year later, I was at Passion with Elevation Worship, and like 50 or 60,000 people are singing this song because they all know it at this point. It was like, I got to hear that song on like a guitar demo, and now I'm hearing it in Mercedes-Benz with all these people, and they all know the words.
Wow.
So to see like the trail and the impact was like so eye-opening for me and like so special. And I think back on the hard days and the hard weeks, I think back to that.
I love that. I love that. What I know it's been 5 years. I'm familiar with kind of church and the kind of ministry background you guys have and experience. What's one of those things that when you got there, you're like, oh wow, I had no idea this was like this. Anything come to mind? It could be the cafeteria food in the lobby.
It's the imperfection, honestly, because like, you know, what we put out, we of course wanted to be like across the church, like not like just referring to the record label or anything. Like we wanted to have purpose, we wanted to be excellent, we wanted to have meaning, and we fight for that. And there's a lot of iterations of work we do that are not seen because it's part of the process of fighting to get it what we feel would be, you know, right. And there's a lot of imperfection in that process. Sometimes it's chasing an idea all the way to the finish line and then saying, never mind, that's not it. I think that's the surprising thing.
Gotcha.
For however much work we put out across the board, like it's a small percentage of what everyone collectively does day to day, because a lot of the journey is the creative process. And that journey is an exploration, and it's time spent making stuff. It's time chasing a motion graphic and like, is it this keyframe or is it this keyframe? Is it this color or that one? I don't know. Let's try them all.
Yeah.
I think that was the surprising part for me. I thought it was like, man, once we got the idea, it's perfect, it's locked in, chasing it down, we're moving on. Not so much.
Mine, I'll say it and then I'll explain it. Like it might sound weird to say, but I was just really blown away by I'll call them artists because under our label, they are considered artists. I was surprised by how passionate they are about our church and how much they keep our like Sunday morning and our people as the primary focus. I think there's a lot of worship leaders or church, staff that are just trying to be really big. And I don't think there's anything wrong with a platform. But I think that how you handle it and how you live it out is very important. And so just having the opportunity to have conversations with some of them, have moments in the room where they are talking about a song or what they want to create or why they're doing what they're doing. Even just watching how they interact with our church and what they do on a week-to-week basis. There's a lot they do that is kind of just your worship leader role and responsibilities. And I think that there's a lot to be said about them being worship leaders first and artists second. And so I've just been really blown away by how grounded they've stayed in our church and how they've kept that like the primary focus. They're not perfect. No one on our team is. But they have carried that really well. And it's
perfect pitch, though. Perfect pitch, right? No autotune, right?
No, never. They all sing right on.
I mean,
on point. They remember the lyrics every time, right?
Really
lyrics. They remember the lyrics. Third verses get written.
No confidence monitor or anything.
Sometimes.
But they're just great people. And I think that's one thing that Chris and I were, honored, humbled, thankful to work with worship leaders who love God, love their people, and then also are an artist.
I love it. Now, having been able to visit and meet some of the team and know it's cool to see it, the local church it's a local church.
Yeah,
and it starts there, and it's still, and it's massive, and it's mega, and the impact is global, but it still starts there, and they stay there, and that's the source, and the congregational. And I love even what you mentioned earlier of lighting the room. And it's a congregational effort, right? Because the minute you do that, it's like we're all, and I think that's reflected in the last couple of years. So it's amazing work. A couple of final questions, and we're gonna wrap up. This is an extended bonus here. We should have started here, but break down the teams. So like who you're leading, the on staff, contract, agency, support in like seasonal. How does it break that down for somebody who's curious on, okay, I see the impact, I see the Grammys, I see the incredible songs that we sing, I see what does it take? Break it down, the team.
Yeah, that's a great question because it's not easy to replicate simply because it's been 17 years in the making, right?
That's important.
And so our team has grown very steadily over time and then has like taken a dip and been rebuilt. But our record label is, I don't know how many categories these are, but it's creative, marketing, business, studio, social is marketing. I'm sorry, creative, marketing, studio, business, tour. So 5. But 2 of those categories are like 1 or 2 people each, right? And so for the creative team, we're a team of 8. And when it comes to something like a live recording, we are all calling like every videographer that has a heartbeat on staff, and it's like, please come help us. And then some at times.
And then no heartbeats. Yeah.
But for like a music video, we have what we need within our team in most cases to pull off what we need as far as a crew. And so creative team is 8. The marketing team is a handful, maybe 4 or 5. Business is just a couple people. Tour is just a couple people. And then the studio team.
We have a lead engineer who's been there for a long time. I don't know how many years.
Coming up on 10.
Yeah, he started as an intern, and then he is now our lead engineer. And then we have 4 engineers under him. And I do not do anything with the engineering process. I will clarify. They've tried. They're like, go tune this vocal, and I'm like, you don't want me to do that. I've said I'll learn, and I might one day when we slow down.
You're like, I'm here to keep you on track.
Yeah.
You make you sound good. I keep you on track.
Right. You do work because I have your tasks.
So all in all, I'm tracking the math correctly. At our Christmas department party, there's probably around 20 people, 20 to 25 maybe. And it's like they're on some week, it's so different. Man, week to week can be so different. Next week we're going to be in production all week, and probably not, other than one day, like we won't even be at our desks, or maybe even at our offices. But this past week was just purely like a post-production week. We're just there with headphones on all week. We need a break. We go play ping pong. We get lunch. We come back. We put our headphones on. And then like a live recording week is usually met with some kind of like team rally where it's like buckle up, like drink water, drink coffee. We're gonna have some long days, but it's gonna be unforgettable, And another week might be just a bunch of like staff evaluations, like, hey, let's talk about our progress, our goals, our focus, and not even be touching projects. And the variety of all that is a ton of fun. But that's how I describe the team. Yeah.
Love it. And then outside, you said contractors, agency. I know there's support. It outside of the weekend, right? Because Weekend Elevation Church Creative is a separate team. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, just to clarify that too. Amazing. Colin, any final question? I have one just technical, silly question. And guys,
Sure.
thank you so
Take it
much.
away.
Thank you. No, tell me this, just because it's all the buzz and all the hype and all the AI and elevation worship. Any overlap? Any conversation? Are you editing with it already? Are you exploring
other
sets?
than we're convinced it's going to take over, but
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I hope I can just type in a prompt that's like, "Hey, there's a new verse," so make it look like it.
There it is.
But no, our designers, our art director, have definitely incorporated that, and it has to stay tasteful. It has to stay purposeful.
has to fit.
But we just put out a Christmas album, and apart from the main cover art, all the rest of the branding is very, like, extremely colorful, extremely bold, and like abstract and kind of wild. Like, I know this is random, but like if you were to like look at the lyric videos from these songs, you would see some of this branding. And there was a lot of AI elements that went into that as far as just kind of creating these looks. I definitely think it's here to stay, and I'm terrified of it, not going to lie. But as best we can, it's like, hey, this new tool showed up, and it's providing us something that we didn't have before. Why wouldn't we use it? Why wouldn't we incorporate it? I don't think it's, I hope it doesn't take over the creative mind, right? And so it's like, use it as a tool, not as a crutch. And so we've tried a few things in video with it, and it's just, maybe it was just the application or the specific situation. It just like wasn't working. And so hasn't quite branched into that for us yet, but hey, like, we're keeping that as an option. We're going to keep exploring.
You guys are pioneers and innovators, so always curious. So
listen, when the worship team starts having like 7 fingers on their hands, we'll know they've like
Honestly,
fully integrated.
hilarious.
Yeah, might have gone a little far.
Well, guys, before we wrap up, talk to the leader that's listening, the nonprofit leader, the ministry leader, in your experience, what you've learned while at Elevation and while leading at a high level, working with leaders there of all shapes and sizes and capacity. What's your insight and wisdom to them?
Yeah, sure. Like one thing that comes to mind that I have, especially as I've transitioned from like someone that's purely just doing the work to someone that's like leading the work, in my few years here, this has really been like a compass for me. And it's what I believe is a truth, not from the Bible or nothing, but just from people that I admire, mentors, right? It's this phrase that the number one demoralizer in any organization is lack of clarity.
Yeah.
And I want the creatives on my team to create with a passion, to create with an excitement, but there has to be some kind of a box. I think, and we've talked a little bit on here just about like embracing limitation, but like give direction, be bold, like define the parameters. That's okay. Like, it is tough for a creative in some situations to just be like, go make random stuff. Like, just the table is wide open. And sometimes that's good, especially on the early end, but like, defining clarity, I think, is so important for what we do, at least, and especially, I mean, what I would think would apply to any leader. Like, if we move on from here, or part of a different department or part of a different organization, like, I'm taking that with me. I want to lead with clarity, because I think that it is such a demotivator to not be clear, and for someone to start their work with like I don't know if this is right, but like, I don't have the opportunity to like get their ear to ask any questions, so I'm just going to hopefully go in this direction. It's just not fun to have that doubt in the back of your mind. So for any leader, when clarity is available, speak it, like, over communicate it if you have to. There's nothing wrong with that. Number one demoralizer.
I love it. No, Chris, and it fits into everything we talked about, because I think if you see clarity, it will allow for flexibility. It'll create margin for the whatever comes your way, for a third verse, for a fourth verse, if they got, and but the clarity of the purpose, the mission, whatever has to be set. It'll build trust. And man, that's a great word.
Cool.
Great. Drop the mic to wrap up.
Yeah, we'll close it out there. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been a great talk, and thank you guys for listening as well. We will see you next time on the Nonprofit Renaissance.
Thanks again for listening to the Nonprofit Renaissance. We hope it ignites a renaissance in you and helps you go further and grow faster. Be sure to share, rate, and subscribe. And if you'd like to recommend or be a guest on our show, send us an email at podcast@versecreative.com.